All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We're going to go ahead and get started in just a minute. Give everyone just a minute to get settled. Confirm. Can you guys see my screen? Awesome. All right. Got folks coming in. Thank you for joining. Perfect. All right. Great. I think we will go ahead and get started. So again, thank you for joining us for this webinar. My name is Nicole Kaysen, and I am the event marketing specialist here at Consensus, and I'm going to be your moderator for today's session. So this webinar is presented by Consensus, Transform How You Sell with Consensus, the first product experience platform. Automate demos, drive faster decisions, and accelerate growth, and learn more at goconsensus.com. So before we begin, I do want to invite everyone here to join us for DemoFest. DemoFest is a virtual event redefining how pre-sales drives the entire go-to-market engine. And the event begins on April 22nd. And as mentioned, it is completely virtual, so you can join us from anywhere. And if you can't join us one of those days, I still encourage you to register because you will have first access to all of the recordings. So in addition to the amazing sessions and great content, there are a ton of other benefits, including networking with fellow pre-sales, sales, and marketing folks, and then connecting with some of our partners as well. So you can register at demofest.com, and I will also go ahead and post the link in the chat, and we hope you can make it. Now, we encourage you to participate in today's webinar. Our speakers are going to answer any questions at the close of the event, but you are welcome to post your questions at any time through the Q&A box on the right side of your console. And if at any time you're having technical difficulties, just press the help button that's also on the right side of your screen, and we'll go ahead and get you sorted out. And now I would like to introduce our speakers. So today we are joined by Dan Conway and Mark McKinley. Dan is the CEO and president of 2Win Global, and Mark is the vice president of 2Win Global. And they're going to share on expanding pre-sales touchpoints to deliver exceptional product experiences across the buyer journey. So unlock the power of pre-sales to create content strategies that meet the evolving needs of today's buyers. Modern buyers expect a balance of self-service content and live interactions. So how can your team deliver? Dan and Mark are going to tell you how. So with that, I will turn it over to you guys.
Great. Thank you. Welcome, everybody. Good to see everyone. Thank you for joining. As we get started, you may know 2Win typically as our expertise in pre-sales and sales training around demo to win, discovery skills, storytelling, executive engagement, client success. And while that's true, we have also launched a consulting division a year ago. And that consulting division has a dedicated practice around helping clients implement Consensus. Whether you're an existing client and you already have Consensus and you need some help and support around adoption, maybe content creation, help and support in terms of your implementation and your rollout and your continued success, or whether you're thinking about buying Consensus and you want some help and support and guidance around strategy and implementation, we're there for you at 2Win. So with that, either way, the fact that you joined this webinar means you're part of the transformation with us along the way on shaping how buyers are buying differently and sellers need to sell differently. So with that, we're really excited to spend some time with you today. We look for it to be fun and interactive. So please ask questions in chat, and we'll keep an eye on that. And we're looking forward to spending the next 45 minutes to an hour with you. We'll leave some time for questions at the end as well. So with that, I'd like to introduce Mark McKinley, VP of 2Win Consulting.
Thanks, Dan. Can I just double check that you can see my screen? Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, so today we want to sort of temporarily reframe what a demo might be when viewed often as a single tactical event at a given time or a place, to where we transform demos into something more intentional and strategic. So with that, I just want to roll a short video.
Let me tell you a story. So it's a story about a strategy, an approach, philosophy, one that I've been thinking a lot about. And it starts with a guy that maybe you haven't heard of. His name's Dave Brailsford. And to set the stage for this, I want to tell you a little bit about British cycling. So about 15 years ago, early 2000s, British cycling hires this guy named Dave Brailsford. And at that point, for the last like 100 years, British cycling had been incredibly mediocre. They had won a single gold medal back in 1908. They had never won a Tour de France, which is the premium race in cycling, the premier race. And so they hired this guy named Dave Brailsford to change that. And in fact, at the time, they were so mediocre that when they went to buy a new set of bikes, they were going to get like 200 from a top manufacturer in Europe. They actually weren't even given quotes from the manufacturer because they didn't want other teams to see the British riders using their gear for fear that it would hurt sales. And so they brought Brailsford in, and they said, "What's your plan for changing this?" And he said, "Well, I believe in this philosophy that I call the aggregation of marginal gains." And the way that he described it is the 1% improvement in nearly everything that you do. So they started with a bunch of things that you would expect a cycling team to start with. So for example, they put slightly lighter tires on the bike. They got a more ergonomic seat for the riders to sit on. They had their outdoor riders wear indoor racing suits because they were lighter and more aerodynamic. They had each rider wear a biofeedback sensor so they could see how they would respond to training and then adjust it appropriately for the person. But then they did a bunch of things you wouldn't expect a cycling team to do. So they split tested different types of massage gels to see which one led to the best type of muscle recovery. They taught each rider how to wash their hands to reduce the risk of infection so they wouldn't get a cold after, get sick. They also figured out the type of pillow that led to the best night's sleep for each rider and then brought that on the road with them to hotels whenever they were competing. And Brailsford said, if we can actually do this, right, if we can execute all these little 1% improvements, then I think we can win a Tour de France within 5 years. He ended up being wrong. They won it in 2 years, and then they repeated again the third year with a different rider. And then after a 1 year break, they won 2 more. So they've won 4 out of the last 5 now. They've gone to British cyclists. But it was at the Olympics in London in 2012 when this kind of strategy really came to fruition. They won 70% of the gold medals available. Let me tell you a story.
Okay. So a real story of success in terms of pro cycling. But what you may ask, does pro cycling have to do with what most of us on this call are all about, which is pre-sales or solution consulting or demos, etc. And I want to sort of draw the parallels to this because actually there is quite a bit in it. If you look at a pro cycling team and you look at their season comprises of many races. And those races fall into 2 different types. You've got your classics and monuments, some of which you've maybe heard of before. One-day races, the likes of Milan San Remo or the Tour of Flanders, or the big one, the Hell of the North, which is the Paris-Roubaix. But you compare that to the really famous ones, which are the 3 Grand Tours, the most famous of which being the Tour de France. And if you think about that in terms of demos, it's a bit similar to a pre-sales season. Our season often comprises of some classics and monuments and some big grand tours, or mid-market type engagements and enterprise type engagements. And really the way that we train for those and the way that we execute our performance in those are different. Just the same in cycling, they're different. So what could we learn from what Sir Dave Brailsford did with Team Sky and apply so similar things to the world of demos? So in that video, they talked about how they identified and optimized every small detail, everything from equipment to their training regimes, etc. And then they looked at how do they make those better? How do you make each of those components that 1% better so that we aggregate a number of marginal gains? And how do we know that we're making the gains? How do we know that we've improved from where we started? And we can do that through three separate things when it comes to demos. First and foremost, we need to have that vision for our season ahead, so that we know what our demo strategy is and how we're going to deal with those classics and monuments or mid-market versus those grand tours, such as the enterprise type deals. How do we look to make sure that our content, so i.e. our equipment, is primed and optimized for each of those events? And how do we measure the success for that? And that's really the three areas that I want to take us into when it comes to demo automation: vision, content, and success. So if we think about vision, and if the analogy holds true, then if we were going to take that approach, we've got to ask ourselves, what is the vision for demo automation? What content applies to the vision, and how do we define and measure success against that vision? Now, to be able to do that, we said that the demo is no longer an event. It's just a single day race or a stage within a grand tour. It's something that's bigger. But what we need to do is convert that vision into something that is more proactive, and that we are gearing towards the events that unfold. So the best way to look at creating that vision, gone too far, is that people need to understand what that vision is. It needs to be clear and communicated to everybody that's going to be a part of it. So it's about making sure that people understand why we're doing demo automation. What's the reason for it? Is it a strategic level initiative where we're looking to better align the product to the GTM motions? Or are we looking to adapt our GTM motions to be able to provide a more accessible product experience earlier in the buyer's journey, so that we can get closer to the buyer across that buyer journey? Or is it at an operational level where we're looking to be able to create those demos and those qualification demo types, where you can start to serve product experiences as part of your qualification process? So there's a variety of ways that people look to demo automation to be able to help. And it's important that we communicate what that is. If we've then got the vision for the demo, then it's how do we actually train people to be able to compete with that? Because digital demos are very different to live demos. It's a bit similar to being in a one day stage race, where you've kind of got to do a bit of everything. You've got to be a hill climber, you've got to be a sprinter, but it's just an all-out attack, and you have to be agile and just react to what's in front of you. Versus when it becomes that digital type demo, you have to think about the 21 stages. You have to think about each day of a 3-week long race. So like in enterprise sales, we need to start to think about who are the key stakeholders that we're going to speak with. Is it certain people in terms of certain lines of business? Are we going to start at an operational level with those people and earn the right to then get to departmental managers? Are we then going to get from departmental managers to the executive suite? And what about when does IT come in for maybe data and security or platform due diligence? So we need to start to think about all of these different areas that are going to present themselves across our performance. So being able to create the right training environment for that to work is hugely important. And of course, when you're implementing that vision, it's not that everybody stops what they're doing and just waits on this new vision being trained, etc. So we need to be able to create that vision, but implement it with minimal disruption. And the best way to do that is really to look at a stepped implementation. So let's not try and boil the ocean all in once. We should be looking to perhaps certain teams or certain, and when I say a team, a combined team, so sales and pre-sales, maybe it's a certain territory, maybe it's a certain product line. But if we take that small start step and figure out what good looks like, figure out the A/B testing that Team Sky did with the gels. Maybe we've got two different versions that the team come up with to tell the same story of a certain product, a certain persona in a certain industry. Then maybe we try both versions and see which one is best. Or maybe we go to some friendly customers that are in that area and ask them for their opinions. Which one of these would resonate better with you? So it's about making sure that we start small and make sure that we understand and baseline what our starting point is so that we can measure the progressive steps thereafter. And then what we need to look at doing is implementing this into our operational cadences. How do we create the minimal disruption when we start to work with that small team of content creators that have started to create content against our vision, but they're starting to work with the sellers who may just open their arms and embrace this new way of providing product experiences or demos in an asynchronous manner via the likes of Consensus, or they may be resistant to it. And there's a little bit of change management that's required to help coach and manage their use and their adoption of this type of content in their sales motions. So to finish off from having a vision perspective, it's really, really important to be able to establish what your vision is and to share that vision. Do not feel like you're over communicating when you're communicating that vision. I don't believe there is such a thing. We need to keep it front and center of everybody that it's going to involve. And that's typically sales, pre-sales, as you start to push further up into the funnel, potentially into marketing, and as you start to push further down the customer journey into professional services and customer success as well. It's also important that that vision will require skills or skills at a new level that perhaps you haven't really been using that much in your traditional go-to-market. And therefore being able to train and enable people, give them the time to learn those new skills, and then give them the time to be able to adapt to those new skills is really something that you've got to build into your roadmap, which accompanies your vision. And then also to be able to control and measure the implementation, minimizing disruption. It may well be that there's a mass excitement for being able to do digital demos, for being able to get into that 70% of the buyer's journey before they reach out to a sales rep, to be able to get those demolytics. You may have that fortunate situation where that excitement's there, but you don't want to dampen that excitement by A, not having a vision, and B, not being able to follow up with the execution against that vision. So point number one, make sure that you establish a strong and coherent vision. If we move on to point number two, then it's about content. And as the statement is saying, vision without action is merely a dream. We need to fulfill that vision with content. And therefore, a content strategy becomes really important. So going back to your vision, why are you doing demo automation? This helps to start to form your content strategy. Perhaps your content is going to be heavily focused in the early days at those top of funnel type activities. The idea here is to use the product experiences as a form of demand generation. In which case, vision and micro demos or high quality micro demos become your priority. And therefore, that's where you need to put a lot of emphasis on the messaging and on the quality of the content that you're going to produce, because these are the demos that are going to create first impressions. And as the old saying goes, you don't get a second chance to create a first impression. So these are really, really important to tightly define. Or perhaps your use case and your vision is more around middle of funnel to help with sales and pre-sales productivity, to help to reduce that time from a request to demo to actually delivering a demo and being able to deliver those really, really quickly. Again, you're probably still in that micro demo type category. And again, a focus there needs to be on what are the typical inbound type of requests. And when somebody makes that sort of request, what is it that you want them to think, feel, or do as a result of watching or consuming some of your product-based content? Or perhaps it's the bottom of funnel type content, which allows for pre-sales to be able to easily and broadly communicate what you do today. A great way of introducing pre-sales, and I mean the whole of pre-sales, to demo automation is to take in the 6 demo types what you would call a live or a technical demo, which everybody does today. These are the sort of things that everybody is doing, is to be able to take those, and most likely they're going to be delivered in a format like this in Zoom or on Teams or in Google Meet or something like that, and be able to press record, and to be able to take that recording. And if anybody's ever done Demo to Win, you'll have a visual roadmap and you'll understand where your chapters are and your beginning and your middle and your end, or be able just to simply break that recording down into the key topic areas or chapters. By breaking it down, you can then present it back in more bite-sized chunks via Consensus. And presenting it back in bite-sized chunks allows your buying group to easily go back and review your content, because they don't need to sift through an entire hour skimming it and scanning it. They can actually just go to particular topics, which then makes the replay of it much easier, and it then makes the sharing of it amongst colleagues that perhaps didn't make your live demo, or to colleagues who weren't aware of it, but you want them now to be made aware of it. And a true story in terms of probably the 2 best examples I've seen of this is where 2 separate organizations that I've been in and worked with, we've generated over 120 hours on one replay and over 150 hours on another replay. The 120 hours one, because it's easier for my mathematics to tell this story, was actually about 20 hours of live content. It was 5 half-day sessions of deep dive live technical demos presented by 3 separate presenters. And by simply taking those, breaking them down, each one of those days became a personalized demo in Consensus, and then were served back under an advanced branching demo. We were able to increase the view rate of their live demo by 6 times, going from that 20 hours that it was originally watched by multiple people, of course, but factor it in by 6 times. So establishing a strong content strategy is really important, and having that content strategy aligned to the vision of why you are deploying demo automation is extremely important.
Hey, Mark,
Yeah,
we have a question.
perfect.
Good. The question is, what are examples of channels we can push micro demos at the top of the funnel to generate pipeline?
Great question. So I guess there's a whole variety of ways that can be done. The sorts of typical channels that I've done in the past, I have worked specifically with the marketing team, for example, on specific marketing campaigns. I once worked with a marketing team where the outbound messaging was always going to be about why don't you give us some of your data and we will use our technology to optimize your data and to simulate an outcome that probably takes you hours and a lot of labor resource to do, and we'll do it quickly. And what we did in that marketing campaign was integrated pieces of demo, because really what we wanted to show is what that solution could do. But our real call to action was, why don't you see your data in our solution? So that outbound motion comprised of some outbound emails. The outbound emails alluded to the fact that there was a product demo, but clicking on the email then took you to a landing page that marketing had then created. And we embedded the consensus video inside the landing page. So that was a way of sending out demo content in conjunction with a marketing campaign and getting leads as a result of watching the demos. You can take it to an extent as well where you could expose the demos via your website. If you've got that request a demo button, rather than create pure friction when really all I'm filling in is a form for a BDR to phone me and qualify me, to then be passed from the BDR to an AE to be further qualified, to then get to a demo. Why don't you give them a demo? If it says request a demo, maybe that's a linkage then to some of your top-notch, high-quality vision or micro demos. So those sorts of challenges for top of funnel can be addressed by product experiences. And if you take it beyond a video demo and take it into dynamic product tours, where there's actually then the ability for a user to click through your product using what was called Reach Suite, which is now called Dynamic Product Tours, but actually watch somebody deliver a demo and then feel as if you're in a demo, are fantastic tools to be able to expose the buying group to your product much, much quicker and with far less friction. Hopefully that answers the question. Any other ones in there, Dan, before we move on?
No, he said excellent. Thank you very much.
Perfect.
Good for now.
Okay. So we've got our vision. From our vision, we have got our content strategy. Then we need to start the content planning. And what I've found before is that this is often an area that creates trepidation, shall I say, because when you start to really think about how would you like to slice up your product portfolio and your GTM motions, you start to realize that to create a lot of episodes, and episodes become seasons and seasons become box sets, there's quite a bit of work in there, and that requires planning. So why are we creating the content? Where will we deliver the content? What could the content packages contain? It all starts to become a little overwhelming, and that's when content planning becomes important. Now, what this really sort of means is that there are a couple of skill sets that we need to revitalize potentially within pre-sales or up level within pre-sales. And that really is product stroke program management and product management. Because really what's happening is you're starting to become a product function. The product that you are producing is no longer confined to live performances at a particular venue at a particular time. The product still does that, but your product also has to now go to the studio and has to be recorded and has to be distributed. And you have to communicate with your internal stakeholders what you've built, what you intend building, and when it's going to be built by. So this is all about your expectation setting. And therefore, it's really important to start to get yourself organized so that you can start to create not just a roadmap, a high level picture of what products, industries, regions, languages, etc. you're going to do when, but actually have the ability to really sort of take that roadmap down and start to allocate it out amongst the pre-sales team. Now, fortunately, the sorts of tools that are out there these days to be able to help with that are plentiful and in abundance. Certainly, what I've found to be really, really good are simple sort of Kanban type systems. For those that are in a Microsoft type world, the use of Microsoft Planner is a great tool, or tools like Monday.com or ClickUp or Trello. Basically, things where you can sort of stack up each of the episodes on one side and then just drag and drop and move them through the progression is a really useful way of having multiple members in the team all collaborating. And it means that the overhead for reporting on your content planning is literally diminished to the point of zero. You just simply go to the reports and dashboards within these tools and you can pick up where content is intended to be built, who's going to build it, and where it is in the process. So content planning is really, really important. And that then brings me down into the content execution piece. The content execution bit is where we've got our vision, we've got our content strategy. The strategy's been distilled down into a particular plan. People are now executing against that plan. Now, there's no better way to describe this than having you hear from a customer that's been on that journey. So with that said, let me introduce Taylor from Workday, and Taylor can explain how Workday have gone around their content execution piece.
I am our content strategist for Consensus here at Workday. So I work in our Solution Consulting, Innovation, and Programs office. The ACC, or the Accredited Content Creator Program, was really manifested through a few needs that we saw across all of our markets and industries for being able to accommodate for field needs at a faster pace. And so what we didn't want to compromise was content quality, as well as basically being able to tailor that to what the field was needing at the pace at which they needed that. And so we've created an assembly line sort of enablement program to get folks up to speed to produce the content quality that we need. My background is in enablement and in adult learning, and so the way that we've structured the ACC program is in line with that. So making sure that they understand the basics, what is, who is your audience, who are you targeting, then moving forward into what value messages am I really trying to drive home, and how do I make sure that that's embedded throughout my entire script. So we do a lot of work on scripting and have really leveraged that relationship with 2Win, particularly for that. And then we move forward into some of those more technical aspects that maybe don't come naturally to your workforce right now, but that are very interested in it. So elements of production quality, eye contact, how do you make sure that someone feels comfortable in an asynchronous environment? So we see 2Win as a partner throughout our SC's journey here at Workday. So we have them go through the Demo to Win program as a part of their onboarding, and they use those skills and methodologies learned throughout their entire careers. And so when we were considering building a new program focused on consensus content, they were one of our first calls to see if they had existing curriculum or were interested. And it turns out that they are rolling out a Consensus to Win offering. And so the timing couldn't have been more perfect. It's been really great to have that partnership in building our ACC program. Think about what your field needs to be able to execute accordingly. I think oftentimes we're very used to demoing virtually, especially in a post-pandemic environment. But what we're not thinking about is that virtual engagement the same as someone sitting in a room with no one present on a call with them? And so when you're thinking about what's really going to drive a difference, especially for consensus, it's thinking about those innovative ways, how you're still maintaining that personability, and driving home really what you want to in your videos.
So there
I
we
am
have it.
our content strategist.
That's Taylor from Workday, and part of how Workday went around creating their ACC accredited content creator program for content execution. Now, content is a critical piece of your overall vision. And again, think about it like the bikes of Team Sky. It's not the bike that wins the race, but you can't win the race without one. You need to have a content strategy that's aligned to your vision. Why and where are you looking to deliver content? So applying the who and the when to your content strategy will allow you to break it down into a content plan. Upskilling and empowering your team will allow you to do the how of your vision. Content is extremely important, so make sure that you understand why, where, who, when, and how content will be delivered. And that then brings us on to success. Success, as the old saying goes, if you can't measure it, you can't improve it. So with Team Sky, for example, they set out their vision, which was to win the Tour de France in 5 years. But in order to get to that end goal, they needed to have lots of little 1% increments or marginal gains that took place between that big, bold statement that they announced to the world and to actually achieving it on the stage. So what does success actually look like? And again, this is where we need to sort of think practically about it. And this is where I'd encourage people to think about leading indicators versus OKRs versus KPIs. Now, as the name implies, a leading indicator is just an indication that things are progressing. And that's maybe where you start with in the beginning. The picture that you see here is one of the famous Team Sky riders, Chris Froome. And what Chris Froome's actually doing at this point in time, it looks a rather sinister in some respects, but he's actually doing what's called a VO2 max test. And a VO2 max test is a horrible thing, but really what it's trying to do is it's looking to test the volume of oxygen that you can create in your aerobic fitness system so that you can power the muscles. And it's a leading indicator of fitness, especially fitness when you're riding a bike across 3,200 kilometers or whatever it is in 21 days. So it's not going to really predict whether or not you're going to win the Tour de France, but it's a leading indicator to how it could. And that's where we need to start thinking about leading indicators when it comes to measuring success for demo automation. Maybe some of those leading indicators are looking at the number of content creators that you have as a percentage of your pre-sales team. Maybe you want to regionalize that or productize that. But maybe you're looking at some sort of accreditation program like Taylor just explained there that they're doing in Workday, where you're looking to sort of certify people to a given standard. So really, these are good ways of starting to create leading indicators that ultimately over time will start to become KPIs and actual metrics that you can look to leverage. So basically, understanding that you need to have that success is really, really important. You need to baseline where you are today in order that you can demonstrate that the journey that you're taking is delivering success. And that's what led us to the title of this particular session, that the demo is no longer an event. If you think about anything from today, think about demos more like a Tour de France race, where there are a series of competitive events across 21 days. Unfortunately, we probably don't work within 21-day sales cycles, but start to think about your demo as a series of events as part of something bigger that we need to compete in, and we need to compete at a high level. And to make the demo a very successful component of the competitive journey, we need to establish a vision for what those demos are. They need to be proactive and intentional. The content before, during, and after a demo needs to deliver impact. So make sure that your teams deliver impact on race days. Furthermore, having that performance mindset underpinned by numbers will help create a starting baseline and performance improvements over time. Whether you're starting with leading indicators before you get to KPIs, but take that approach of a performance mindset in terms of how you're executing with content against success criteria towards that vision. And that is the end of the presentation side of things. So I'd like to open it up now for any questions.
Mark, I have one question, a question from Dustin. It's, what's your philosophy around camera on or camera off during recorded content for demo videos?
Really good question. So what we are finding is when you come to the content side of things, we are developing a set of sort of standards and skills around sort of beginner, proficient, and advanced. The reason that we're doing that is that there is trepidation, I would say, in the beginning stages of camera on. And that's fine. If you need to start with people who are uncomfortable with camera on, then that's your starting point. I think when you move to the proficiency level, if you break a demo down and you think about it in its three parts, normally, for example, a micro demo is problem, solution, benefit. I would strongly encourage that the problem and the benefit is camera on and live host, because it creates authenticity and credibility. The middle section, the solution section, you don't necessarily need to have camera on in that one. But when you move into the advanced way, when you start to use more advanced tools, I would say that you create the option of having camera on. And without getting into the details of it, there are ways of being able to record somebody delivering the demo, but not show them, or have the option to show them. The problem is if you burn it in on the video, it's stuck there. Whereas if you don't burn it in and optionally put it on, you have the option, because some cultures, some industries would respect the fact that the presenter's there. But I would say that it varies and it's part of your A/B testing. Furthermore, the way technology is moving with AI and with text to video and with avatars, so organizations or products like Synthesia and HeyGen, etc., they are accelerating time to content. But as the market gets flooded with artificial content, and if you're as skeptical as me around what's on LinkedIn these days, probably 80% of LinkedIn content, somebody's hardly even thought about what's getting posted. It's AI generated. It's becoming very, very noisy, and being able to separate quality from real authentic content is becoming harder. And I think, it's just my prediction, but I think that's what will happen with video-based content as well. People will take shortcuts, they'll use these tools, and ultimately the credibility of video, if it's using those tools, may go down. So I would strongly encourage people to just lean in on their growing edge and to overcome that discomfort by being camera on, because the impact of camera on makes a huge difference.
Great. Thank you, Mark. I got another question here. With the introduction of digital demos, how would you suggest to ensure we maintain a strong human connection with our prospects?
Another great question. I think what sometimes that question gets posed as if it's binary.
Hmm.
It's either digital or it's human. It's not. It's both. It's both. And I think understanding how to use and intertwine both of them are really, really important. I've done some of these speeches before where I've really taken the contrast. I'm of an age, as the hair color shows, where when I was a teenager, I used to jump on a bus and get a bus to the local big town where I'd walk into a record store and I'd spend hours flipping through crates and going into listening booths to experience music before I decided what I was going to buy. People don't do that, or most people don't do that anymore. They've got tiny little devices that they just simply stream content for. People buy cars like that now. They buy houses like that. They buy vacations or holidays like that now. So people are used to doing research online, and they may or may not go to consummate the deal or validate the research with a human. And as studies showed last year, Sixth Sense released a wonderful study on the 2024 buyer experience where they had a sample of 2,500 buying organizations with an average ACV of 300 to 400K. And out of those 2,500 respondents, 70% of the average buyer's journey was completed before they reached out to a rep. So if I was being very binary about the answer, I'd say that 70% of your buyer's journey is being conducted online anyway. You just want to be part of that and then excel in that 30% where you take the experience from online and amplify it in a live performance.
Great. Any other questions?
I'll just jump in while folks may be thinking of some more questions, just to say
Please.
thank you to Mark and Dan for such great content and for your time. I personally really enjoyed this session. So just thank you for that. And we'll see if anyone else has any questions.
We're getting a few comments. Chad Wilson jumped in on the human connection isn't either or, meaning either video or live, rather it's both. Buyers largely want both asynchronous and synchronous interactions. Agreed. Yeah, I don't see any other questions, more just comments at this point.
Well, if anyone does have any follow-up questions, we can definitely forward those on to Mark and Dan and the 2WIN team. But with that being said, thank you everyone for joining today. Thank you, Mark and Dan, for your time again. We really appreciate it. And we hope to see everyone at DemoFest. Please register, and we'll see you at the next webinar. So thanks, everyone. Take care.
Absolutely. Thank you, everybody.
Thank
See you
you.
at DemoFest.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.